Hi there. So this video will serve as an overview of this segment of what we are going to cover in the next three videos and how will we cover them. So the first video you will learn about BitPaper, the online tutoring platform that we use to tutor our students. It's an online whiteboard service. The second video will be dealing with the best whiteboard practices. Since our whiteboards are only means of communicating with our students in terms of our content knowledge, it is only obvious that we would like our whiteboard work to look as exemplary and as effective at communicating with the student as possible. And in the third video, we will talk about how to execute exemplary whiteboard work optimally. And even though we'll talk about it in detail in the third video, the idea is to do the best possible work in the least amount of time possible and not just making it perfect. But we'll talk about that more in the third video. And then you will learn that by walk through BitPaper. Like I said, I'll walk you through tools and features available on BitPaper. The second video will go ahead and break down some of the actual whiteboard work that our tutors have executed in live sessions. We'll go ahead and break them down exactly what aspects of those whiteboards or that work makes it exemplary. And in the third video, we'll go ahead and learn about adapting some shortcuts and keyboard shortcuts or methods to optimize our workflow and to make it smoother and more seamless. So I'll see you in the next video with BitPaper. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get started with BitPaper. So the first thing you would want to do is go ahead and hop onto bitpaper.io. So you can find the link here, as you can see, bitpaper.io, and then let's get started. So I have already created my account. You might want to sign up for BitPaper, and then the first thing you would need to do is go to My Papers. And let's go and create a paper, since I already have one, and at this moment I am only allowed to create one paper. So we'll go ahead and click on this one to start with this, but you might have to create one for yourself. Now, to give you a basic sense of what BitPaper, what papers on BitPaper really mean. So every paper is essentially an infinite whiteboard. So to give you an example, if I write something here, I can go ahead and pan in this direction. And this is just to give you an example. I'll talk about panning specifically. We will not be panning for any of our sessions, but just to give you an example that this is an infinite whiteboard in every direction, and that is one page of my paper. And then let me go ahead and recenter that. So all right, and then I can go ahead and create another page and then another page. So that is how BitPaper will function. Every page you can always create more and more pages. And then I switched back to between pages with less than or greater than sign on the keyboard, and that's an easy keyboard shortcut you might want to adapt. Now let's go ahead and get started with the tools and features available on BitPaper. So the first thing you would want to do after creating your paper is inviting your student to your BitPaper. And the way you do that is, if you look over here on the left hand side at the bottom, there is an option called Collaborate. Go ahead and click that, and when you click it, you will see this URL, and when you share this URL with anybody, they can hop onto your whiteboard, and you two can collaborate on a whiteboard together. So let's go ahead and do that. You might want to share that with your student, or at least practice getting onto that whiteboard. The second thing you might want to do is background. So BitPaper is very creative in this sense. Most whiteboards are just white, but BitPaper allows you to customize your background depending on your sense of color, what your purpose is, how you organize and present your content. So in terms of that, BitPaper allows you to organize or customize every page of your board, of your paper separately. So like if you see here on the first page, I had it set it black, so I'll go ahead and make that black again. And the way you do that is, I'm sorry, I forgot to walk you through it. So if you go onto the bottom left, you see this checkered box over here. You click that, a menu will pop up. You go to background, you can select any color you want your background to be. I prefer black sometimes. So that's done, and then I can also make it a grid, or I can just leave it blank. So the way I make it grid is I usually like 50 by 50 boxes. I find them perfect for my purposes, so there it is. And I can also change the line color. For example, I prefer white, but then if I wanted to make it red, I can make them red, but let's go ahead and make them white again. And you can also change the thickness of the lines. For my purposes, one thickness is perfect. So that's my whiteboard, or now as we can call it, my blackboard. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at some more cool features. One of the things you will be doing a lot is doing your students' assignments. So you will need to upload their material on your whiteboard. The way you do that is, again, go to the left corner, left bottom corner. You see this clipboard or this pad kind of symbol. So just click that, click on upload files. A menu will pop up. Go to the top, click on upload files. So I have a folder here from two of our students. I'll go ahead and upload one of their assignments that I was given, and it might take a little while, but there we go. And there is my image from the assignment. And the good thing about BitPaper is it has its own repository. So even though you upload an image long time back, it will always save these images. Even if I end up, let's say for some reason I realized this was not an image I wanted to discuss right now, what in fact I need to discuss right now is problem number 16 from the session. So let me go ahead and delete that. We'll cover how we can delete that. So I'll go ahead and upload problem number 16. All right, that's perfect. My problem 16 is uploaded on my whiteboard or blackboard, and then I can go ahead and solve for problem number 16. Let's go ahead and just pretend we solve this, etc, etc, etc. Now I realize that now the problem number 16 is done. Now I can hop on to problem number 11, and this is one of the cool things, or things that makes using BitPaper a little bit easier. So problem 11, even though I deleted it from the whiteboard, it will still be available in the repository. So I can just access it from here instead of going all the way back and uploading it all over again. Sorry. And then I just upload this on the paper, and that's it. Now onto the most fundamental tool of all that we'll need for our tutoring sessions, and that will be pen. So as you can see, these are the main tools you will be using at the bottom of the screen, right in the center. So the first thing is the background color. We have already, sorry, not background color, but pen color, but I'll come to that in a second. The first thing you need is the pen. So pen, the second button from the left, so you can just go ahead and select pen and you can start writing. So problem 16, and that's it, right? And what are the features associated with the pen tool? So if you click on the first tool over here, the first button, so color settings, it will open up the pen and the highlighter menu. So the first thing you can do is select the pen color. That's obvious. So we would prefer not to write with black on a blackboard, but then if I select white, I can go ahead and write down in white color on a blackboard, and that looks pretty nice. I can adjust my pen width. I usually prefer to write a little bit thinner than this, so I prefer pen width 2, which so this seems much better, thicker, thinner. I can also change eraser width, although I usually prefer not to use the eraser, and I'll tell you in a while why. Also, you can play around with the settings in terms of color. You can also go ahead and find a customized color where you have a lot of variety and options there. Once we're done with the pen, let's go ahead and hop onto eraser. And let's go ahead and start try and use the eraser. So I'll erase this part over here and this part over here. You can also erase your image. It might seem like it's erasing your image, but I'll just go ahead and erase this for now. So let's go ahead and erase that, and it looks pretty clean. And that's all there is to eraser. The fourth tool is the selection tool. And what you can do is you can basically select anything on the whiteboard or the blackboard, and you can just drag over it and it will select it, and then you can move it. You can also rotate it. So if you see the circle over here, you can also rotate it, and you can also expand it or contract it. So you can expand it or you can contract it, and depending on what you prefer. So that's that. And the reason I was telling you about not using eraser is exactly that. So if I go ahead, I had used the eraser in this region. If you see, what eraser does is basically it coats the blackboard or the whiteboard in just another layer of the same color, and those strokes are still there. So that's why I prefer not to use the eraser. So to give you a better example, let me go ahead and use the selection tool. Now that I take that eraser stroke off, you can see it just basically covered the whole board in a paint or in a coat, which would hide or conceal these strokes from me, which is fine if you don't move around the things a lot. But since I am constantly moving things in my sessions, I prefer not to use the eraser. And now, like I had also said at the beginning, we'll not be using the pan tool, and the reason again I'll be covering later on. But then the middle tool, or the fifth tool from the beginning, is the pan tool, but we will not be using the pan tool, and I'll tell you later why. Now onto the sixth tool, which is shapes, and this we'll use pretty frequently, and we'll cover this more towards the end of in the next video and the video after that one. But tools allows you to draw a lot of shapes, so you can go ahead and pick arrows. For example, you might want to point to something in your session, and white on white doesn't look that great. So let me go ahead and change the color of those tools. So same method. You go to the palette at the beginning, the first button, you click on that, you select your color. Red on black would probably look very nice, and it would stand out. So if I'm trying to point the student to something on the board, I can use this arrow. Or if I feel this is not good enough, I need a filled shape, then I can just click on that. You might see a little button on top of the tools, so click on that. A library will open up. You can select draw filled shapes, and I feel using this kind of arrow will definitely get the students' attention. It will give them a clarity on where I want them to look at, so this might be helpful. So that's about the shapes and tools that we'll be using in our sessions. Now comes a very important tool that we'll be using a lot in our sessions, and that is the text box tool. So how the text box tool works is the second button from the right. So if I click on it, it's selected. I click anywhere and it will open up a text box. Now I am free to type out anything I want. So let's problem solving is an art. And the next thing you can do on this is you can change the font size, so you can make it as big as you want, or if you feel like I made a spelling mistake there, and you can also reduce the size as much as you want. So depending on your needs and depending on how big or small you want your text box to be, you can go ahead and customize that. So that's the text box. And finally, the equation editor. This is something you will probably not be using, but if you do, if you are into LaTeX code, or if you want your equations that you put on the board to look phenomenal and professional, this is an absolute gem. So the way you can do that is you can select alpha. Say we are trying to write an equation. So alpha squared plus beta square, or beta square. So beta square is equal to 1, and let's go ahead and insert that equation. So this is an equation, and just click on that and you can move it around. If you feel like, well, red doesn't really look good, how about blue? Let's go ahead and input an equation with blue text. So I select the equation editor, I click anywhere, and then it opens up this pop-up menu, gamma of let's see, t equals say theta. I'm just making up stuff, and I can also write this equation using these buttons over here. And the best way to use that is using LaTeX code or tech code. But if you're not really into that, or if you think it's too much of a learning curve, you can totally skip this part. This is completely optional, and you probably will not be using this a lot. But if you do, your equations will come out looking really professional and really beautiful. And that's it with regards to the tools. Now we have still one thing left to discuss, and that is exporting our PDFs. And we need to export this PDF so that we have a soft copy of the notes of the session that we had with the student, and then we'll email that PDF to the student. So the way we get the PDF of the session is you go onto the left side, bottom left, and then you go ahead and click on the, sorry about that, I pressed a key by mistake. So let me walk you through it again. So go to the bottom left, go to these three bars, it opens up the options menu, and then you click on create PDF. And what PDF does, and that brings us to why we will not be using PAN. What PDF does is it makes what export PDF does is it makes a PDF of everything visible inside on every page. So right now, for example, we have this visible on our blackboard or whiteboard. So if I click on export PDF, let's call it session 1 training session 1, and I will select all pages. You can customize all pages or just one. So I'll go ahead and just print one and not all of them, because I did not do anything on pages 2 and 3. So I'll just select page 1, and if I click on print, it will give me a PDF to download. And as you can see, my PDF has been downloaded. So let's go ahead and have a look at that. So this is what my PDF looks like, and this probably will not be showing up, but this is the PDF looks exactly like my whiteboard was looking. So you get what you see in terms of your PDF. And let's go ahead and see what my PDF would look like if I had actually panned it out a little bit in or out. So let me go ahead and pan this a little bit. So let's go ahead and pan this a little bit like this. So my problem, even though it's on the whiteboard, it's not showing up. So it's not in my field of view. So if I go ahead and print the PDF now, let's see what it will look like. So not all pages, I'm just selecting one and print it out. So it will download my training session notes. And as you can see, the problem has been cut off. And this is exactly the reason I don't want you to be using the pan tool. And that brings us to the end of our BitPaper video. I would encourage you to practice this on your own as an exercise. So you can take this as an exercise. Go ahead and practice all of the tools we talked about. See what are the tools you're most comfortable using, and just familiarize yourself with the whole environment. And then we'll cover best practices to organize your whiteboard content in the next video. Thanks.